Hey guys, today's video is something a little different. This is actually a segment from my new channel called Jonny Talks, where my editor Russell and our fellow co-host Dario cover all kinds of aspects about the NBA, both past and present. On this segment, we had a special guest, Skap Attack, who appreciates basketball history, has a solid YouTube channel, and is a major fan of both Nikola Jokic and Kobe Bryant. So naturally, we had to do topics involving both of those players. We did a total of 3 segments, this one that you're watching, another segment that is on Skap's channel, and another segment that is on the Jonny Talks channel, where you can find content like this regularly that will include guests like fellow YouTubers and occasionally former NBA players. I'll have links to those other segments in the pinned comment, but as for this one, please enjoy our thoughts on Nikola Jokic in the 1980s.
We are looking at the great center from the Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic, and we are putting him in the time machine and taking him back to the 80s, more specifically the 1985-86 NBA season. You got teams like the Lakers and the Celtics dominating the league, Showtime, and then you got, the big three front court with Larry Bird, McHale, and Parrish in the front, dominating the East and West. The Pistons are starting to come up. You got the Rockets team with the Twin Towers, Olajuwon and Sampson, and a young Michael Jordan who is just starting his climb into the league, even though this year he's hurt for most of it until the playoffs. But either way,
you got to mention it though. I got to mention this real quick. Right at the top of that list is the Denver Nuggets, who were Who were one of the more but I'm more well equipped to talk about this than you. Let's be honest. So.
Go ahead.
The Denver Nuggets of the 1980s, Alex English, Lafayette Lever, they were basically, think of like the Indiana Pacers today or the mid 2000s Phoenix Suns, where their best defense is double the offense. Yeah. That was the Denver Nuggets of the 80s, who were just like, you thought the Showtime Lakers offense was high octane. This team would have years where they would be the number 1 ranked offense by a mile and the worst defense by a mile. And so This is who they were. And so just an interesting idea if we wanted to hypothetically put Jokic on the same franchise.
And also go back to the internet page. So look at the average pace. The league average is 102.1. Denver's pace this year was 99.8. That was 8th in the league this year in a league that we consider, relatively faster. Mm-hmm. That would be good for basically almost dead last, like bottom 5 of the league here for pace for a team, right?
Yep.
So going to what Jonny was saying, the fastest team happens to be the Denver Nuggets. And they have a glaring hole at center.
100%.
Glaring. And I think if you put Jokic on this team, replaced Wayne Cooper, who never won an award that I can think of, you put Nikola Jokic right there. This is the guy we were just I just saw a video not too long ago that the Oklahoma City Thunder put a permanent guy on the bench to be like a sub in, sub out guy just to stop Nikola Jokic from getting the ball really fast from the referee and throwing it up court to trigger a fast break. So you're putting a guy who wants to play really fast on a team that is already playing lightning fast, one of the fastest teams, honestly, of all time.
Jokic outlet passes in the 80s. Oh my God, that'd be so much.
Oh my God. And in this pace, because to me, pace controls all stats. I don't think there's any universe Jokic doesn't average like 35, 14 rebounds, and 12 assists. Like, I have no idea how he doesn't do it, especially on this team, because all his numbers are just going to go up. But he doesn't have to, you guys can put him on whatever team you want. But for me, I always like to put these guys from now on the fastest teams back then, because I think that's where you get the craziest stats.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. I ended up putting Joker on the 76ers. At first, I really wanted to keep him in the West, just because it's like I know back then the East was like more of the like physical conference, and the West was a little bit more like showboaty, I guess. I feel like I know this kind of makes it like a crazy super team because you got Charles Barkley, Moses Malone, Julius Erving.
Yeah, who the hell do you have starting here?
That's what I was going to say.
Well, I was thinking
who you gotta put either Jokic, Moses, or Charles on the bench. Like,
no, I think we're putting Charles as a small forward because really he's a smaller power forward, right? He's 6'6".
Sure.
He could easily go to small forward. You got Joker as either the center or the power forward, whatever we want to do, and then you got a guy that rebounding. We're not really gonna need that much from Joker. He's probably still gonna do a decent amount, but you got Moses and Charles, so they're gonna be the rebounders. He could still I don't think he's gonna average like a crazy amount of points like he's doing this season. Like he's at around 30 this season. This team's pace is 100.5, so it's pretty damn near identical to current year's Denver's pace of 99.8. So there's not much of a difference there. So I don't think we get any like huge stat adjustments.
Sure.
I feel like he lessens his rebounds. His points probably are more like 23 to 25 points, just because it's going to be distributed so much between the stars. And then I think his assists are probably the same or more, because he's going to look this year you can argue there's probably one guy that is very similar to him in Larry Bird, right?
Yeah.
Like Larry Bird's similar size, which it seems crazy because Joker's like a center in this league and Larry Bird's a small forward, but they're like,
sure,
aren't they both like 6'10"? I'm not exactly sure on weight and stuff, but pretty similar.
Bird's 6'9", Jokic about 6'11".
And Jokic is much, much heavier.
Heavy, yeah. I think it's probably like a 30, 40
peak
pound
boy.
Yeah. But I think like their play style is pretty similar. So like, you got a guy who he's gonna be the first point forward or point center that they've seen. And I think they and I don't feel like it's crazy to put them in the 76ers and make this crazy super team, because you have the Boston Celtics in the same conference. Sure. So I just feel like you kind of like even the odds.
That'd be a crazy front court matchup. Oh my god.
Yep. So I feel like that would be a dope place to put them and make them a contender too.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go first, and then I'll let Skap wrap this up with any thoughts he might have. I'm going to stick to the Nuggets, and here's what's interesting. I'm going to try to hypothetically, like, I think in some ways his stats get inflated, and in some ways his stats get deflated. And keep an eye out on the main channel, because I'm going to talk about this. Like, there are stats that we generally talk about, like assists and points, that are inflated in the modern NBA, but there's also ones that are definitely deflated. Big men rebounding was way less, is way less today. Back then, in 1985 to 1986, the average team was shooting 3.3 3-point attempts per game. Today is 37.6. Now, what do high school coaches say all the time? Long shots equals long rebounds, which is why you got guys like Josh Hart, Russell Westbrook, Luka Doncic. You have a lot of guards now floating around 10 rebounds per game because they're hitting hard off the iron, and a lot of them are coming their way. And that's also why you don't have guys putting up like freaking Wilt Chamberlain numbers, Moses Malone numbers even. So now, with only 3 3-point shots per game, 30 more shots for each team, that's 60 more shots that are taken closer to the basket. I think Nikola Jokic is averaging something insane, like 16, 17 rebounds per game in the 80s. Okay. And this year, currently, Jokic is averaging 29.6 points, 12.7 rebounds. So I'm going to bump that up. I think the situation he's in, if you got to share the rock with, that's just always the case. If you put a bunch of great scorers together, the scoring goes down. So now he's got to share the ball with Alex English, who scored more points in the 1980s than any other player for the entirety of the decade. So I think I'm going to say his scoring goes down to about 26 points per game. His rebounding goes up to about 16. More shots being closer to the basket instead of like half a block. I'm even giving Jokic like 1.1 blocks per game.
Yeah. And
assists, I think that would be the big tough part for the Joker, is because yes, the outlet passing is nice, but how does Nikola like to operate from the post with space?
Now all of that action is condensed, and he doesn't have as much rotation. He doesn't have guys spreading out on the perimeter. And so I think now you're knocking him down to probably about 7-8 assists per game. I think Magic would be looking like, not Magic, sorry, Larry Bird would have been putting up Nikola Jokic triple-double average seasons if he played in the modern NBA because of the inflation of his assists, because of all the spacing and everything. And so, yeah, I think it'd be great. I still don't think they're getting past the semifinals because Jokic does not help them out defensively.
Yeah.
You have TR done on that 86 Denver Nuggets, and then a bunch of guys who never even heard of the word defense. So
yeah. And it's also like if they go up against the Rockets, Jokic, I'm not saying Jokic is getting absolutely murdered, but like to go against Samson and Olajuwon together in the paint.
He's still getting his, though. He's still getting his.
Yeah, but that just sounds awful.
Oh, yeah. All he has to do is pull
horrible.
I think he could take advantage of them if he.
I don't know, man. Olajuwon is amazing defensively, especially on the perimeter for his size. And Samson was just a freak of nature. So, like, I think those two guys are the exceptions and not the rule in terms of being able to pull him out.
They would
what
need
is Jokic going to
time.
do? Cross him up?
They would need time to adapt to Jokic. Because Jokic camping out 22 feet from the basket, ready to spot up with a three-point shot. I'm sorry, Hakeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson, we'll be looking at him like he's an alien. We'd be like, wait a minute, this guy's shooting 40% from three-point range and 86?
Yeah, definitely true.
It would change the entire game too. Like if you pull those guys out, now you don't have like two rim protectors and like you could attack the basket way more. Like I think it would change the dynamic of.
I just want to take an overview of Jokic in the 80s in general, because I think there's a lot of discourse on cross-era comparisons and would so-and-so be able to exist in previous eras or whatever. The old heads like us sometimes might say, oh, well, these guys wouldn't survive with the physicality of the eras that preceded them. And then the younger kids today might say, oh, well, they're just so much better athletes today. They would dominate those plumbers of previous eras. I think Nikola Jokic is a guy overall that could exist in any era. I think he probably would have been at his best in the 80s, though, because the pace was so high. The scoring doesn't look quite as high. It was like it's 114-ish today. I think it was 115 last year. It's only 110 in 85, 86. But as you guys noted, the pace is actually higher. It's just there's more three-pointers today, which are making up for that scoring discrepancy. But I think Jokic, I mean, look, Larry Bird dominated the NBA in the mid-'80s. He was the MVP in 85, 86. This is top of my head, I think 26, 10, and 7-ish per game were his averages in 85, 86. When Bird won the MVP and the Celtics won that chip, one of the best teams ever, I think, by the way, in 85, 86. Yeah. But definitely. I think Jokic would be just as impactful back then as he was today. I think he would absolutely average a triple-double. Jokic, people don't think about him as an athlete. He's really not athletic, but he is in arguably as good a shape as anybody else in the league today, with the amount of minutes he logs, with how fast he plays, with how much he's running constantly throughout the entire course of the game, and his durability. A lot of the guys today don't play the upper end amounts of games. Jokic has played, since he entered the league 10 years ago, has played in the second most games of any player in the NBA today. He typically is always in the 70s. This was a rare low point for him this year. He missed 12 games. Typically, he's like 76, 78, 79 games. So I think this guy would not have just survived in the 80s. I think he would have thrived. And I'm going to piggyback with you guys. I like just keeping him on the same team. I like just putting him on the Denver Nuggets because, look, Alex English, stud that he was in 1985, 86, 30 points per game average, second team All-NBA that year for Alex English. It would be the best player Nikola Jokic has ever played with. Alex English was an all-star that year. It would be the only all-star that Nikola Jokic has ever played with. I would love to see him running up and down the court with the Nuggets about 30 years ago, and I think he would look great in that uniform.
The one thing I want to talk about, and we're going to go ahead and bring this up on the screen now, is the MVP race of 1986. And listen, we can objectively talk about this without feelings, getting hurt and everything. Fellas, I want your takes here. where does Nikola Jokic rank in like just the MVP race or just the pecking order of the best players in the NBA, specifically in 1986, as whoever, whatever team he was on at that time? Is he the best player in the league at this era?
This is going to sound like an outrageous hot take because look, there is nobody more protective of previous eras than me. Like that's kind of my shtick. Like that's how I got started in this space, was just kind of denigrating like the soft, weak current era and talking up previous eras. I'm not saying I'm ready to put Nikola Jokic from a resume standpoint and an overall all like hierarchical GOAT conversation level above Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, mainly because those guys just won more. They also had better teams, but I don't think it's outrageous to suggest that Nikola Jokic is actually better than Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Like I think just like a one-off kind of like just individual for individual. Like I'm getting to a point where I don't think that's that hot. There are still guys that I refuse to move Jokic over. We talked kind of briefly, you guys did, Hakeem Olajuwon, like just because of how great Hakeem Olajuwon was on both sides of the floor.
Right.
But like Larry Bird, an undervalued defender, but not like a league leading defensive kind of player. And Magic Johnson, to me, was just like an average defender. So I don't think it's that crazy and insane to suggest that Jokic individually has surpassed those two guys. And I think, frankly, if you dumped him at 6'10", like whatever, 270, with how nimble and spry and durable and what kind of shape he's in the 80s with that pace, I think he could be winning league MVPs back then. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting because like we see the physical abuse that Nikola Jokic puts up with in this era. Like he's got cuts and scars and all over him because he's just he's such a load to handle. He's such a big guy, and they're trying to do whatever they can to slow him down. You bring him to the 80s, playing in the in the playoffs, which he'd be in the West, which is fortunate for him because he's not going to have to be with the physical 76ers and the Celtics and the Pistons, because it was really the bloodbath in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, going up against those teams like, Bad Boy Pistons where Lambeer and Mahorn are really just going to lay it on him, it'd be tough. I don't think he'd be the best. I think he's right there. Let me put it that way. Each year in and year out, it's Nikola Jokic, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, year after year. Then you get into like the tier 2 guys, which, Dominique Wilkins, all that. And of course, pretty soon Jordan's asserting himself in that conversation. He's just not here in 86 because he had a broken ankle, But that is crazy right there, that we can genuinely say we can put him in 1986 and he belongs. Like,
definitely.
These are old heads saying this. These are like the guys who are like the protectors of old school.
And also to piggyback kind of what Skap was talking about with the Celtics, or I think it was Skap. Somebody was talking about this. I thought about replacing Robert Parrish with Nikola Jokic just to see what would happen. And the 86 Celtics are the best team in terms of passing that it's like them and that Spurs team that won the finals
2013
in 2014 that are the two best, in my opinion. I don't think it would even be close. I think you'd see passes that like team passes. If you replace Jokic, if you replace Robert Parrish with Jokic, passing would like be brain shattering. Like I can't even. It would be like light years ahead of its time in terms of passing. Like they already came off kind of like pretty much ahead of their time, and like it's not surprising that they did what they did this season and won the championship and got to where they got, because and then it's like you take Jokic off the floor and Walton just comes in and he can do a lot of the same stuff. They could probably like imagine them just playing together, messing with each other. I think the chemistry also would be sick just in terms of personalities, but man, that'd be sweet. But no, if we're saying he's on the Nuggets, he's definitely statistically, like, I feel like from a statistical standpoint, it would be hard to argue Jokic over or underneath anybody else. But in terms of being that's where it's like it's tough until you see it, because the playoffs is the real great determining factor of those sort of that sort of thing. So like, I just don't know. But statistically, to your guys' point, he's there definitely.